If you have been following along with the latest season of Power Rangers Dino Fury, you may have some questions about the Morphin Masters. Welcome to Omaranger, and today we will talk about the Morphin Masters. They were introduced in the first episode as part of a backstory explanation that told us about an unheard of Ranger team from the past that had powers given to them by the Morphin Masters, so these are clearly very important and powerful characters. Now let's clear this up from the start. The Morphin Masters are not a new thing. They were actually mentioned all the way back in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. But we haven't really heard much about them since, so how were they featured back then? Well, all the way back to the 7th episode of Mighty Morphin, Rita was trying to unlock a chest that contained 2 power eggs. Zordon later explained to the Rangers why these eggs were so important. It is an ancient tale that dates back to when the battle between good and evil began millions of years ago. Ancient sorcerers, who called themselves the Morphin Masters, hid a universe of power within 2 mystic power eggs. By casting the eggs into the sea, the sorcerers believed that their ancient ancestors would look down on the eggs and protect them from universal danger. So, as I am sure you will agree, this sounds pretty important, and like it would be a pretty important part of the overall Power Rangers, except that it just wasn't. It was literally just a throwaway line that was used to explain something from what is generally perceived as a fairly unimportant episode. Building a larger cohesive universe wasn't really a priority back then, while other early throwaway terms such as the morphing grid were of course eventually expanded upon. The Morphin Masters were pretty much just left alone, that is until Boom Studios took over comic book duties, and while the show and the comic are considered separate universes, at the end of the day it's still Power Rangers content, so it should definitely be mentioned here. Getting involved during the Shattered Grid storyline, the Morphin Masters were portrayed as beings outside of the universe, ones who sort of set the worlds in motion. They had emissaries to speak with mere mortals and weren't all that concerned with involving themselves in the affairs of man. They still had a big part to play in the comics, and we did eventually get to meet one in the Beyond the Grid storyline. Preter, this master's true nature was still kept vague, but we did get a few more details. They assumed that they were the ones to discover the morphing grid and devoted themselves to studying its unique singular nature. Since then we've gotten a little more information, including the revelation that the Master's entire civilization ascended into the morphing grid. This sort of addresses those ancient ancestors that were mentioned by Zordon in their original appearance. Anyway, are these Morphin Masters the same ones that are featured in Dino Fury? Yes, it's a different universe, but are they the same thing? The design is definitely very similar. There are differences for sure, but you can see the inspiration in the first episode of Dino Fury. Zato described them as being ageless beings with untold power. They appear out of some kind of portal and access the morphing grid in order to give Zato and the other knights the Dino Fury powers. I don't see any of this as a contradiction to what Boom Studios gave us. So in my opinion we can probably take this info that the comics gave us as lore. Whether it's a different universe or not, they clearly have some sort of control of the morphing grid, and I guess they can give anybody Power Ranger powers at any given time. Can you imagine the future possibilities we have if that's the case, especially now with Hasbro moving away from the Sentai link? There are no longer any limits to where they can go with the story. It's a very exciting time to be a Power Ranger fan. They were next seen in flashback when they were creating the Nexus Prism, and they return after the final battle to restore the powers of the Dino Fury Rangers. Season 2 will explain more of them. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more videos about your favorite comics are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.